Hi, I'm Tamara Zoner. Welcome to Spirit Cafe. Come in, sit down, and grab a cup of love.
Well, good morning, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Spirit Cafe. I am going to have a great time this morning talking to two wonderful people about stuff that I enjoy talking about. And today we have a special guest who Tamara will introduce you to in a second. But before we bring her in, of course, I have to bring in the lady of leisure herself, the lounging in her pond outside of the back of her house, the fun female, the woman of whimsy herself, the one, the only, the lovely, the powerful Miss Tamara Zoner. Good day, Miss Tamara Zoner. How are you?
Good day, John Davis. It's so true. I have been the lady of leisure all summer long. Really haven't been working that hard, but
well, I always see these pictures of you on Facebook sitting on a chair reading a book in a pond. So I'm like, she's watering herself.
It's a big pond called a lake.
A lake. Well, I jumped the pond. That's an ocean. Who cares?
Right. Yeah, the ocean's a bigger pond. Which is where our guest hails from, across the pond.
Oh, yeah. So I'm very excited about our guest today. I think it's good. We're going to talk about stuff that I'm fascinated by, the Chakra-Way, which I think is the whole idea of it. So, but why don't we hand it over to you and introduce her, and we'll get going.
Sounds like a plan. Well, today I'd like to welcome our guest, Rosanne Nieboer. And before we bring her on, I don't know if this is showing all three of us or just the speaker, but either way, she's been a yoga teacher for over 20 years. And I had the pleasure of being on her podcast, The Chakra-Way, several months back. And I think, could have just talked all day long. So we will try to keep this episode to reasonable limits around our 30 to 45 minute mark. But Rosanne is a fascinating woman. You're going to love her accent like I do. It makes me feel at home because I used to live across the pond too. And I too just want to get right to it. So Rosanne, I will let you tell a little bit more about yourself to our guests. Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Thank you, Tamara, and thank you, John. This is such a delight. It's such a pleasure. I loved meeting you our first time. Literally spent days, if not weeks, smiling after our conversation. So it was gorgeous to meet you, and thank you for having me on your podcast. So gosh, what do you want to know about me? Yes, I'm a yoga teacher. I have a podcast of my own where I do guided meditations. I teach the chakras as well. I am so that's it. Yoga, meditation, podcast, conversations. And my big passion is teaching and sharing the wisdom of the chakras to those people who might know a little bit about it, but want to understand it. Because for me, they are just this magic formula for helping underlay everything in your life. I just think they're magnificent.
I want to hear more about that. About the magic of the chakras. As a coach and as someone who also does a lot of meditating and someone who's, leveled into Reiki, into level 2, I've obviously touched on the chakras, but it's not something that I've ever really delved into. It's kind of just like right over there for me. So tell us a little bit more. First of all, what attracted you to that particular focus, and then what is the magic of the chakras?
Okay, well, I can tell you the story of how I discovered the chakras. So I've been practicing yoga for many, many years, became a teacher, blah, blah, going into the standard, teaching in a gym, teaching in a hall, and doing the physical practice. And I've always known that yoga made you feel great, but not really knowing why. And I think a lot of people who practice yoga do it because it makes them feel fantastic on more than just a physical level, better than you would if you just went and did a run or a workout. There's something more deeper to it. And so I was on my journey with yoga, and I was in India. I started going to India, I think 2011. And I was on a yoga retreat in India, in Kerala, in this beautiful place, and absolute heaven. And one night I went to bed, as one does, just perfectly normal. And as I lay there, I started to experience this pain in my hips. And this pain in my hips, this joint pain, was just bizarre. It was not like anything that I had ever experienced before. And it traveled into my knees, but it was mostly in my hips. And by sort of 5 o'clock in the morning, when I tried everything and I was beginning to get scared, you know how when you have that kind of pain and you're just like, what is going on? I'm in India, you know, I've not got a runny tummy. I'm kind of okay. I've not eaten anything dodgy. I've been drinking water all day. Like, what is going on? So I suffered through it. I was fine. They took me to the doctor. They were like, yeah, you're fine. Nothing really. Anyway, it faded. And I was just talking to my yoga teacher and saying, I just don't understand why I would just have this random severe pain in my hips. And she said, well, have you been going through a lot of emotional stuff recently? And I was like, well, yeah, I have. You know, I was having a tough time in my marriage, and I come from a very British family where we don't really talk about
Really,
it.
I never would have guessed that. That's
And you know, beautiful and lovely though my childhood was, and much as I love my parents, you know, that side of my life was never really one that was enriched in terms of having, you know, expressing my emotions, even being in touch with my emotions. And so down, I had stuffed all of my emotions. And my yoga teacher said to me, I think this may be something to do with your sacral chakra. And I'm like, And that was the light bulb moment for me. You know, I started researching, I started reading, and when I started, I couldn't stop. I was just absorbing as much as I possibly could, because the magic of the chakras is that they show up in, they mirror your life in so many different ways. So these energy centers, and there are lots of different ways of looking at the chakras. Some people work with an 11 chakra, some people, but the one I do is the sort of classic, which is 7 chakras. And each chakra not only represents a part of your body, but it also represents part of your endocrine system, so part of your hormonal balance, if you like. But it also encompasses aspects of your life. So, for example, since we're talking about the hips, within the sacral chakra, this is where you hold your emotions. This is where you hold your one-to-one relationships, your pleasure, your ability to go with the flow and change with joy, with acceptance, with your sensuality, your sexuality. And so when I meet somebody in a yoga class and they're like, oh, my hips, they've always been really stiff. I'm like, maybe there's something a little bit deeper that you can work on. And when you start working with that sort of level of awareness that actually the issues that are coming up for you physically, maybe very simply using the form of the chakras, using that as a sort of a template or a map, if you like, you can work out where it is that you're holding your energy, where energy is blocked. And then with your yoga practice, you can then do it in a purposeful way, do it with an awareness. So when you're lying there in Supta Baddha Konasana with the knees out wide and the soles of the feet together, and your hips are screaming at you, you go, okay, there's some blockages here. So maybe if I just bring some movement, if I rock from side to side, or if I support myself, but whilst you're there with that mindfulness of what is it that I'm hanging on to? What is it that I need to let go of? What is it that I can release? Whilst I release my physical body, what inner release can I also make? And it just teaches us so much about ourselves. You know, when I was explaining the chakras to my husband way back, and he's like, I don't understand. He's like so off the sort of woo-woo brain. He's like completely, you know, not there. And I explained, and this made sense to him. And I said, okay, so look at it this way. everybody comes from a family, right? Everybody is born, they have a birth family, whether they like it or not. They have a community that brought them up. Everybody needs food and sustenance. Everyone needs the things that they need to survive. Everybody needs to be, has that connection with the earth. This is where our root is, our root chakra. Everybody has creativity, emotion. Everybody wants to reproduce. Well, that's what, not everybody does, but that's kind of our biological DNA to reproduce. We all have some level of sexuality. We all want to have fun. We all want to have pleasure and joy in our lives. Okay. That's the sacral chakra. Up in our solar plexus chakra, we all want to have our place in the world. We all want to be able to be empowered, to have the power to create the life we want. We want to be, be able to be seen, if you like, just to have that. It's our energy to get things done, basically, to be productive. This is our engine center here. Then in our hearts, of course, we all want to be loved, and we want to love and be loved, and we want to feel gratitude and empathy and compassion, and we want that coming both ways, right? Mm-hmm. Up in our throat chakra, this is our need as a human, and all of these are basic human needs that every person on the planet has in common. We all want to be heard. We all want to be able to express ourselves. We want to be able to communicate, and that's a two-way thing, listening and speaking. We all want to know ourselves. In our third eye, we all want to understand. We all want to have insight, to have clarity, to have inner knowledge. And then the crown chakra, we all need some kind of connection. And this is why religion has been such a massive part of our cultural histories, because that divine connection that is here, that lives at the very crown and just on our little halo area. We need that connection, whether it's with a community, it's our spiritual belief, our belief system, our thoughts, our connection to our thoughts. And everybody in the world has all of those aspects. And when you can map them out in your body, you can relate them to areas of your body. So like, say you're always getting a sore throat, or you're always getting a chest infection, or, you always got, stiff shoulders, whatever it is, wherever your energy is being blocked, it's going to show up in your body. And the chakras just give you this really beautiful template, this map, to investigate and understand what you are experiencing in this world, in your life.
Well, that is utterly fascinating. I had an interesting concept about the chakras, but I don't want to go there yet. I want to hold off on that one. But do you find that in your life, you came to a place where you were going through something, and it kind of, you had this bridge where it took you from this physical pain to, there's this mental leap to go, my chakra is blocked, in that sort of situation. Do you find that that people are naturally guided to yoga and the chakra systems? Did you come to this knowledge because of your natural spiritual inclinations, or was it something that you think that you were kind of guided to spiritually?
That's a really good question. Obviously, I had to face plant into a wall before I realized that I needed this.
Most people do, don't they?
Yeah, I think the face plant is quite common when
I think we all have that tendency to reach a tipping point until the body, the chakras and our energy are somewhat like a woman scorned. Like, you ignore her and you will hear about it. She will show up and whip your ass. So I think that I was led gently down the path from my yoga practice, and a realization that I knew that there was so much more to yoga than just doing asana, just doing practice on the mat. And that is the beauty and the joy of yoga for me, is that, you know, having started off in my 20s where I could like fling a leg up here, you know, do all the whatsits. And, you know, now in my 50s, I now, you know, the body is still very willing and strong and wonderful. But for me, the joy of it is the spiritual side of it, for sure. And I'm not sure if that's a personal thing, but my intuition tells me that it comes with age, that as a natural developing human, one just goes on a journey. And I think, especially, you know, if you have a family, you end up being very taken up with all of that. And so, you know, you end up doing the bare minimum for yourself. And so that realization, once that freedom comes after the family is kind of, you know, you've done that, you know, nose wiping decade or so, that, you know, there is actually more out there and you want to search for it. So I think it was a mixture of a lot of things that led me there. But when I landed there, I knew that I had landed, and it was, really spoke to me.
The reason I asked the question is because for me, my own personal spiritual journey has been very organic. I mean, things just happen. And I want to share an experience with you. And I'll give you the experience, and I'd like you to see how you can relate it to the chakra system. Now, understand, I've done a lot of research on how this relates to the chakra system already, but
tested now.
Because I'm a research guy. It's what I do, right? But I want to hear your perspective on it. And this isn't a test. This is just a perspective. There will not be a test at the end.
Right? No pass or failing Spirit Cafe.
Right. So I was years ago, long before all of my own big spiritual stuff and all the things that have happened to me up since then, the very first thing that happened to me on my spiritual journey was I was lying in a tent when it was 30 degrees outside. And I had just seen a show on TV where these monks were able to go into a freezer and physically warm their bodies up to well above the normal human body temperature and keep themselves completely warm. And so I found myself lying in this tent, and I'm lying in this tent, and I decided, well, if they can do it, so can I, because, you know, it doesn't take all those years of practice and meditation, right? So how naive I sort of kind of was at the time. But the naivete was the key to what happened next. Was I sat there and I focused on warming my feet up, and as I warmed my feet up, they warmed up. I was shocked, and then I slowly brought the heat up my legs, to my knees, to my pelvis, and it came all the way to my chest. The heat was right here, and then it wouldn't go any higher, and I couldn't get it to raise. And I found myself in the struggle to try to get it to raise. And then I heard my intuition voice, which I call it a thought voice because it doesn't sound like me, right? And it says, relax into it. And I relax into it, and suddenly, poof, I'm in pure white light. I'm experiencing the oneness of everything around me. I'm completely warm, right? And I had the best and most beautiful night's sleep. But it was just like, as my hands were on my chest, but I felt as if they were like this, and I was just expanding, and I was blowing out and just becoming one with everything. So that was the beginning, the first thing that happened to me on my spiritual journey. So what's your interpretation of that?
Wow. Oh, well, I mean, that is a brilliant story. How incredible, and what an experience to have. Well, my take on that is that we are very much in charge of our own energy. You know, that we have the power within us to shift our energy. I think the terrifying thing is of, you know, the last however many years, I don't know, don't want to put a number on it, but, you know, in modern terms, we have been told that our minds and our bodies are separate entities, and our mind is just there to think and our body is there to do. And that connection between the two has not been an option, because the medical world just decided that that's the way it was. So what that shows to me is the beautiful power of ourselves, of our own connecting with our own energy, in terms of raising your energy. I mean, you raised your vibrations, you know, everything, every cell is made up of atoms. Every atom in a subatomic particle is made up of energy. And you, through the power of your thought, through the power of your mind, through the power of transmitting your energy, your brain waves down into your feet, you manage to make those vibrations faster, higher, and warmed yourself. You literally raised your energy. I mean, heat is energy, very plain and simple. So you connected with your energy and you just drew it up. And I mean, that sounds like a big, if you're ending up with a big, beautiful explosion of white light, that's a big explosion of spiritual energy that happened right there for you. And I love that, because when you were saying, it stopped just here, I was just saying to myself, God, I hope you let go. So
well,
it's just magical.
Well, and it was a very magical moment. And I have been to India and the Middle East, and I've been all over the world, and I've talked to people about this experience over and over again. And the term that keeps coming up is Kundalini rising.
Yeah.
And so bringing the Kundalini up through the rest of the chakras and breaking out the crown, basically.
Yeah.
And so to me it was, what was so fascinating about the experience was that it was literally just my choice. It was my taking the moment to choose. And I know the guy who was actually sharing the tent with me at the time was very jealous, because he'd been practicing TM, transcendental meditation, for 30 years and hadn't had an experience like that. And he was it ended up becoming a really bad situation, because he really was pissed off at me.
Right. Very spiritual.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Tells you quite a lot about why he hadn't quite reached that.
Exactly. But what I found really fascinating was that happened on a Friday night. And the next night I said, well, I'm going to do that again. That's going to be cool. Right. Yeah. So I sat down and I closed my eyes. I started doing it. And then I heard I was in a tent. So I heard the zipper of the tent open, and I opened my eyes. And when I opened my eyes, I heard this noise, which sounded like the om, right? And I watched him step into the tent right over top of me. And I looked down at my own face over there. And so the next night I had an out of body experience, which was just utterly fascinating. So I think that I love the fact that in your story, you had this pain, which led you to this concept, which then took you down this journey. And those things were the first thing that happened on my journey as well. As I was freezing, which was my pain. Mm-hmm. I came to this place of going, okay, well, I'm going to fix the pain, right? And then once I opened myself up to the possibility of more just showed up in my life.
Yeah.
Was it the same for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. The more you open up to the potential that one has, the better. And the reason why I didn't use Kundalini is because that's Kundalini yoga is a beautiful type of yoga, but it's not one that I know much about. So I don't profess to understand. Obviously, the Kundalini rising is beautiful. But I like to relate things more to energy, because I feel I'm really into at the moment, getting to grips with the quantum field and the quantum physics side of energy and yoga, because that kind of is irrefutable. And I love that. When you start talking about serpent rising, people go, there is space for people to just write you off as being a little bit
a wackadoo.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm happy to be as wackadoo as the next person. I don't care. But when you want to get a message across, and when you want people to understand the concepts, if you go, no, somebody at NASA has proven this. This is fact. This is proven scientific fact, that your energy, you can control your energy. You can control your body with your mind through meditation. Yoga helps you get in touch with that. Breathing helps you get in touch with that. Breath work and pranayama is a massive part of that. And then that is all working towards a space where you can meditate and you can create this reality for yourself, where you can have a conversation with the pain in your hips,
Mm.
or have yourself warm yourself like being, someone's switched an electric blanket on.
Right.
You can have that power. So there's these sort of steps along which we use this gradation. For me is like, understanding the concepts of it, putting that into practice in yoga, really feeling in your own body, using your breath work towards meditation. So it's this sort of lovely, and again, when we're trying to, in yoga, obviously we all know means union, or to yoke. And for me, it's that yoking together of mind, body, spirit. And mind is, right, let's study, let's learn something, let's understand. Body, obviously yoga and breathing. And then spirit is the meditation. And once we put all of those beautiful things together in a lovely sandwich of yumminess, that's when we are really cooking on, that's when the magic really begins to happen. And that's why I think it's really important. Some people just go, oh, I meditate. Great, you meditate, but how in touch with your body are you? How connected are you to that? Or people go, yeah, I do yoga, I'm great, I can do handstand in the middle of the room and do something fantastic with my feet. I'm like, great, but do you meditate? Do you breathe? There's this beautiful and it was laid out by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras. You have your yamas, your niyamas, the sort of the basic philosophy, the basic sort of guidelines of cleanliness and morality, I suppose. Asana, the yoga, pranayama, the breathing, and then we start taking that journey up through concentration to meditation to single point focus to enlightenment. Eventually. One day, maybe in the next lifetime. But if you're John, you get there just sat in a tent, being a bit
sat in a tent. That's it. Well, and it's funny. There's all these methods and modalities and ceremonies and rituals and dogmas and all these things that take you there. But for me, it was so very simple. And I think I pulled up a quote while we were sitting here talking, because, and it's not going to be who you think it should be in this conversation. This is a quote by Bruce Lee. All fixed set patterns are incapable of adaptability and pliability. The truth is outside of all fixed patterns. And I think that the concept of one way being the right way is what stops people from reaching that next space of feeling and experiencing that outcome. For me, it was very simple, because I just was warming my body up. And for you, it's like you had a pain in your hip. And so it was very simple. But I love the fact that you said you did a couple things. First of all, you quoted Noetic Science, which is Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo astronaut's science of bridging the gap between spirituality and science. But you also talked about the idea of energy and the oneness of us all, really, in a way. In Hinduism, it's the Sit is the divine God, universal consciousness, and the Sit Sat Ki is the individual sparks within, which is supposedly us. So when you look at the system of chakras, and I love the idea of having the system, but do you rely on it as something as incapable of adaptability or pliability?
Oh no, I mean it's of course it's pliable. It's not just like it's just never going to be just one thing. I do chakra readings on a regular basis, where I go through each chakra and find out where people's energies are. And I have had chakra readings myself where somebody's come along and they just read, so your root chakra's open, your sacral chakra's closed, your solar plexus out of balance, and that's all I'm left with. I'm like, okay, fine. And I go really deep into each chakra, so I go through every single aspect of each chakra. So like within, say, root chakra, your relationship to home, to family, birth family, current family, your relationship with nutrition, with money, with so all of these things that and find out the fine balance. And the chakras, they talk to each other. We've got millions of chakras. There's an important chakra in the center of the palm. There's chakra energy centers all over. And there's the nadis, the channels of energy through which our energy flow. Of course, we've got the main one that goes through the center of the trunk, sort of aligned with the spine, but there's lots of other ones. So no, energy travels. They are dependent. They compensate for each other, and they contribute to each other. And no, it's never fixed. So creativity can be in the throat. Creativity is also in the sacral. But just having that map, that guideline, like what I say to people when they're starting on the course is I say, I'm basically here. I'm opening this door. See the secret door I found here. I'm just cracking it open for you. Now you look through that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a map, and you're just going to go off and see what you can find. Because it's different for everybody. And for some people, they connect with their chakras through crystals, or through astrology, or through yoga, or there's so many different ways that you can work with chakras. And just understanding that basic, and this is one of the things that I'm finding really joyous about talking to people like Tamara and all people who work in the sort of healing energy field, if you like, business, is that every modality that you come across, you can underlay it with the chakras and they still make sense.
Right.
It still is relevant in whichever context you want to put it in. So it may be very, if you do a quiz, you can go, oh, which of your chakras is that line? Do a quiz, free quiz online. It'll come back and say X, Y, Z. There may be an iota of truth in it, but no, it's always more subtle than that. That's why it takes this sort of deep understanding, right, and deep knowledge and work, and inner work, body work, breath work, meditation work, to kind of really understand what your energy is really up to, and to connect with it most of all, so that you can shift it. So you can say, oh God, I've just done something that was so, I don't know, you can label yourself and go, oh, that's what I've done because my throat chakra, I got cross, or I shouted at that person, or I don't know, whatever I did. What is it that's blocking here? What can I do? What is it? Am I, what have I done to my, what can I do to release that? People who have, if you get earache, I always say to people, so what is it that you're not wanting to hear? There's so many different ways of looking at it. You can look at it from, I've got a symptom, what does it mean emotionally? Or you can go, I've got an emotion, an emotional thing. How can I fix it or free it in a physical way? So yeah, it's not plastic. I'm sorry, it's not plastic. It is plastic. It's totally plastic. In the same way that our neurons are plastic. And
I love that.
Yeah,
I totally love that. And it's like you talk about Tamara. When Tamara always gets embarrassed when I tell the story. First time I met Tamara, she walked in. I was in a dark room, and everyone was quiet, acting like it was a church. And Tamara walked in the room, and the room lit up, and everyone started laughing and smiling and talking to her. So I said, "All right, who the heck is that?" And that's how Tamara and my friendship started. Is seeing her, and then 4 years later, still remembering the effect she had on the room, and that was huge. So, Tamara, I know that you are a practitioner of yoga and all that, and so how does this work in your life?
Like I mentioned at the beginning, the chakras themselves have been just kind of like out here for me, and now, of course, I want to go to Rosanne's website and sign up for her class. So, because I do work with clients all of the time, and in fact, as you're talking about the different chakras, one of the things that I talked about with my local meetup group this Saturday was, one of the truth bombs that came up. I always pull these little cards. They're like little angel readings, but they're truth bombs. And the one was, we all just want to be seen and heard. And I was talking to one of my members who is having trouble with both, and also not feeling validated, but then not providing opportunities for herself to be seen and heard, right? So she's like going back and forth, kind of struggling with both. And those are two different areas, right? Being seen and being heard, having your voice, being witnessed. Yeah. And so I just feel like I want to do more chakra work, because it is so it's so inherent in all of the work that we do. And yeah, when those hip things come up, I'm like, oh, what are you storing? Because I talk a lot about too, and we all do, all of us in this kind of field, everything stays in your body unless you allow it to be released. So I have this little quip that I like to say, if you ignore it, you store it, but if you feel it, you heal it. So we have to allow everything to move through us, and yoga and meditation and breath work and chakra work all are avenues to release. And I don't think there's ever just one tool or way. That the union, as yoga shows, is the way.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. We're speaking the same language.
Yeah, that's why I say we could talk all day, and I just could listen to you all day. I love how, you can tell the difference between people who regurgitate knowledge and who have it. And you embody what you teach, and it's really beautiful.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. So thank you very much.
Well, this has been just an incredible conversation. Really just an incredible conversation, because what I really like about this conversation is the feeling that this conversation has. And I think that feeling dives into everything that you've already talked about, is getting back to the feeling as opposed to the thinking. Get out of your head and back into your body and experiencing what your body's telling you, and how you can work with your body as opposed to struggle against it.
Yeah, absolutely. The difference that you can make in your daily life just by taking, there's one thing that I'm always, this is my personal practice that I do every day, is a gratitude practice. But you have to start that by taking a breath. So taking that breath, big deep breath in, feel in your body, find something, anything, doesn't matter. Could be something in your present, could be something in your future that you're grateful for, and then allow the love and the joy around that to expand. And when you start raising your vibration like that, your whole world begins to change. And when you bring that feeling into your yoga practice and into your meditation practice especially, then that's when things really start to shift. Really, stuff starts to happen in your life that you go, oh my goodness, I've had X many amazing days all in one go. Things that I want to happen are beginning to happen, because we are in charge of our own energy. And if you just purposefully raise that up by simple things like that, but also by going deeper, by studying, by practicing, by sitting and breathing and meditating, it's extraordinary what we can achieve. It really is. Yeah.
Amen. John, did you mute yourself? Or are you miming? You never know with John Davis.
I was speaking telepathically. Couldn't you tell?
I haven't done my meditation today. I couldn't hear you. I have done my yoga. But.
So where does everyone find out about you, and how to get a hold of you and learn more about your work?
Oh, thank you. Yes. So my podcast is the Chakra-Way Meditation Podcast. Nice, snappy title. And my website is chakra-way.com. So chakra-way.com. And all my Dash-Way. And so, yes, all my information on my podcast, my courses, my yoga classes, and everything that I do is there for you, and you can get in touch. Yeah, so
that's wonderful. And just for those of you who don't know, Dash-Way is the more fabulous style of feng shui.
So what's your favorite social media platform to be on? Do you show up on social media, or do you usually just do the website itself?
Oh, well, God, I know that I need to be better at it. It's one of those things, isn't it? But my I do Instagram, and I do TikToks as well occasionally when I'm feeling brave. So yeah, that's mostly where I show up. Yeah.
Cool.
Wonderful. Well, Tamara, you want to take us out of here?
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Rosanne. This has been such a joy and a pleasure. And of course, thank you to my co-host, John Davis, always bringing his wit and humor along for the ride. Thank you, listeners or viewers, for being here, because what would be the point if you weren't having a conversation along with us? So let us know what you thought about this, what questions you have for Rosanne, and of course, go check her out on Instagram and TikTok if you're brave. I haven't braved TikTok yet. And we will see you again next week. Thank you for joining us on Spirit Cafe. Please leave all comments on our Spirit Cafe Facebook page or in the comments below our YouTube videos.